Okay, so get this. You know that Bryan Adams song, Summer of '69? Turns out it might not be about what we all thought.
Yeah, it's like this total nostalgia trip for a lot of people, right? But the book we're diving into, Mind Your Language, by Abhishek Bora, he highlights this research, and it suggests something completely different.
Really?
Yeah, apparently it might actually be about, well, this is kind of funny, it might be about a specific sex position.
You're kidding. See, that's what I love about this. You think you know a song, and bam, hidden meanings. But that's Bora's whole point, isn't it? Language is powerful stuff.
Right.
We often don't even realize how it's shaping, like, our whole understanding of things.
100%. And he gets into some really fascinating research on how basically the way we frame information can really mess with how we make decisions.
You're saying even when we think we're being all logical at the grocery store, the way products are described can actually, like, play tricks on our brains. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so imagine this, right? You're at the store, you're looking for some ground beef. Are you more likely to grab the package that says 75% lean or the one that says 25% fat?
Okay, I have to admit I'd probably go for the lean option, even though, yeah, it's technically the same thing, right?
Bingo! And that, my friend, is the sneaky power of framing. Bora talks about this research by Levin and Gape, and they found that people are just naturally drawn to, like, positive framing, even when the negative frame is, well, it's giving you the same information.
So basically, marketers are using, like, wordplay to make us think we're making these healthy choices when really we're just falling for their clever marketing tactics.
Pretty much. But it goes way beyond just, ground beef. Think about how politicians talk about policies or how companies position their products. It's everywhere.
Wow, I'm starting to see framing everywhere now. It's like a linguistic illusion or something.
Exactly.
Okay, so how can we avoid falling for these framing traps? How can we learn to, like, see through the hype?
Bora suggests training yourself to, mentally reframe information. So, for example, if a product is saying it's 90% fat-free, you flip the script and ask yourself, okay, so it's 10% fat. That kind of thinking can help you make more objective decisions.
That's actually a really helpful tip. I'm definitely going to try that. So we talked about framing and marketing, but what about the world of social media? It seems like brands have to be so quick on their feet these days.
For sure. And Bora actually tackles this head on with this idea he calls improvised marketing interventions, IMI for short.
Catchy.
Right. And he uses this really memorable example. Remember Luis Suarez, the Uruguayan soccer player, bit that Italian player during the World Cup?
Oh, yeah. How could I forget that?
Total chaos. But instead of shying away from the controversy, Snickers used it to their advantage. They tweeted something like, next time you're hungry, just grab a Snickers, and tagged Suarez.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was brilliant.
It was pure marketing genius. They basically turned this PR nightmare into a viral marketing win by, being in on the joke and connecting with their audience through humor.
It's a great example of how brands can use, like, real-time events and clever language to really grab people's attention. You have to be able to think on your feet, adapt your message to what's happening right now.
Exactly. And it takes a deep understanding of your brand and the ability to be flexible while still staying true to your core message.
So if social media is all about, like, cutting through the noise, Bora has kind of an interesting take on noise itself, doesn't he?
He does. We usually think of noise as this bad thing, like something to be avoided at all costs. But Bora kind of flips that on its head. He says what we think of as noise can actually be valuable information.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. Give me an example. Where does he see value in noise?
So he uses this example of trading floors, those crazy environments. Everybody's yelling, waving their arms, using all these hand signals. Seems like pure chaos.
It sounds pretty overwhelming.
Right. But Bora highlights this research that suggests that all that noise, it actually conveys crucial information about the market and how traders are behaving.
You mean even in all that chaos, there's valuable information hidden within the noise? That's so interesting. It's like finding order in the middle of all that craziness.
Exactly. And it challenges this idea that, more information is always better. Sometimes the real key is being able to filter out all that noise and focus on the signals that actually matter.
That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about framing social media and even finding meaning in noise, all through this lens of language. What other linguistic rabbit holes does Bora take us down?
Well, he dives into this whole idea of brand charisma.
Okay, brand charisma. Sounds a little I don't know, kind of vague, maybe? What's
Yeah.
that all about?
Basically, it's how brands use language to like create a personality, and how they build trust with their audience. Think about some brands you really like. What is it about their messaging that you connect with?
I think it's not just what they're selling, it's how they're talking about it, right?
You got it. Aura says these brands with strong charisma, they use language really consistently, and they use it to, tell a story and connect with their audience on this deeper level. He uses Patagonia as an example. They're all about adventure, sustainability, respecting nature. That stuff really resonates with people who share those values.
Totally. Even just flipping through their catalogs, like reading an adventure magazine or something.
See, that's exactly it. They've put a lot of thought into crafting that voice, and it works.
Okay, that makes sense. But say I'm trying to, build a brand. I'm not Patagonia, just someone with a small business. How do I even start to create that charisma with language?
Well, Boris suggests starting with your core values, right? So what do you stand for? What's that message you want to put out there? Once you've got that figured out, then you can start to shape the language to match those values.
So it's about finding that authentic voice and letting that shine through in everything you do.
You nailed it. It's about consistency, which doesn't mean being boring, by the way. You can still be playful, creative, all that, but that core message should always be there, kind of underpinning everything else.
I like it. Find your voice and let it sing. But okay, this is where things get a little, I don't know, maybe a little creepy for me. Borer talks about artificial intelligence and language, right? Always feels like we're stepping into an episode of Black Mirror.
Definitely a thought-provoking area. He doesn't shy away from the potential downsides, for sure. Imagine a world where AI can analyze just mountains of data. Your social media, your online shopping, all to predict what you'll buy next, or even how you're feeling.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. But also, yeah, kind of creepy. How much can they really tell just from how we use language?
That's the million-dollar question, and Bohr doesn't pretend to have all the answers. But he does highlight the potential for things to go wrong.
Yeah, that's what I worry about. We're giving this incredibly powerful tool language to machines. But how can we be even remotely sure that they're going to use it responsibly?
Exactly. That's why Bora really stresses the importance of ethical guidelines, responsible development, all that, especially when it comes to AI and language.
It's definitely a lot to consider. And it's not something we can just ignore. We have to stay informed and be aware of how these technologies are, being used out in the wild.
I'm right there with you. This is one of those areas where we can't just sit back and be passive. We need to be involved in shaping how this all plays out.
Right on. So we've covered a ton of ground here. Everything from how marketing plays tricks on us to the ethical side of AI. Before we wrap things up, what are some key takeaways you think our listeners should remember from Mind Your Language? I feel like, after this deep dive, I'm hearing things differently. I'm noticing all this framing and these word choices everywhere I go, just even in regular conversations.
It's kind of what's that saying? You don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Once you learn about all these little linguistic tricks, you can't unsee them.
Exactly. So, okay, let's recap some of the big takeaways from Mind Your Language. We've covered a lot, from those sneaky framing tactics to the crazy potential of AI. Where do we even begin?
That whole framing thing really stuck with me. It just shows how easily our brains can be nudged in a certain direction just from how the information is presented, that whole lean versus fat thing with the ground beef.
Right. It makes you wonder how many times we've been, totally influenced without even knowing it.
For sure. And that's why Bora's point about, consciously reframing information is so important. Don't just take things at face value, flip the script, look at it from another angle.
Yeah, it's he's giving us the tools to, navigate this world that's just, overflowing with information. It's a lot.
Totally. And speaking of navigating a crazy world, remember what Bora was saying about noise? It's not always a bad thing, Sometimes what seems like chaos is actually full of useful information if you know how to listen.
It's like Sherlock Holmes or something, seeing the clues that everyone else is missing.
Exactly. Sometimes it's not about finding more information, but about filtering out all the distractions and focusing on the stuff that really matters.
And, we can't forget that brand charisma thing, which I'll be honest, at first I was like, really? But But now I see how powerful it can be.
It's not just about sounding cool, right? It's deeper. It's about authenticity. Those brands that really connect, they've figured out how to use language to tell their story in a way that resonates with people who, who share their values.
That's like finding your people through the language you use,
Exactly. And that's something we can all do, whether we're building a brand or just, trying to communicate better in our own lives.
Love it. Find your voice. Let it ring. Okay, we got to circle back to AI, though, because that topic always leaves me with this feeling of, excitement, but also a little bit of, oh boy, what have we done?
Yeah, it's a powerful tool, for sure. Huge potential. But like Dora says, we got to be really careful about how it's developed and used.
We're at this crossroads, right?
Yeah.
And the choices we make now about language and technology, those choices are going to echo into the future.
Absolutely. We can't just bury our heads in the sand. We need awareness, critical thinking. We've got to be willing to ask the tough questions.
Couldn't agree more. Mind Your Language has given us a lot to think about, that's for sure. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a little something to chew on, a final thought to spark their curiosity.
Let's hear it.
So we've talked a lot about the power of, the words we use, but what about the power of silence? The things we don't say, the pauses, the gaps in the conversation, what messages are hidden in those spaces?
Oh, now that is an interesting question.
Right. It's like this whole other level of language that's just waiting to be explored. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder that mystery. Till next time, happy listening, everyone.